heard from Dennis a little earlier how Jack saved the life of the princess. And there was a bargain there, that whoever saved the princess's life would win her hand in marriage. Well, when the king saw that the person who saved the princess's life was Jack, he started having second thoughts about this bargain. Jack came up to the palace to collect his due, and the king said, well, just wait a second, Jack. I've got to make sure that you're fit material for becoming the king after me if you're to marry my daughter. So I've got a few tests for you. I've got 3 tests for you, Jack. Would you be willing to try your hand at these? Jack thought there's nothing much to lose, so sure, king, I'll do that. And he was given a good meal and a good night's sleep, and the next morning the king said, okay, here's your first test, Jack. I've cut down some trees and got them all bucked up into lengths, just ready for splitting and stacking. And if you can do that today and find my gold pocket watch that I lost out here somewhere, that'll be your first test. Are you in agreement, Jack? Jack said, sure, I'm in agreement. Now, what the king didn't know was that in the night, the princess had come to Jack in his bed. She tugged on his blanket and she said to him, Jack, I don't know what my daddy has in store for you tomorrow, but if he offers you one old thing and one new thing, Jack, choose the old thing. Well, Jack was about to take on his task. The king had 2 go-devils for him to split the wood with. One had a nice, shiny new handle, sanded smooth, varnished, brand new head. The other one had a worn old wooden handle with splinters. The head was all tattered. Jack looked at those. He thought, take the old thing. That's foolishness. I can't work with that. I'd get blisters just looking at that handle. I'm going to take the new one. So Jack took the new go-devil, and he set to splitting that wood, and he was working away, and as fast as he split one piece of wood, the previous one would jump back together. As soon as he got a couple of pieces split, they joined back together into long logs. He was going as hard as he could all morning long, working himself into a froth. About noon, he took a break, and the princess came out to see how he was getting along. She said, Jack, what are you doing out here? I'm splitting up your daddy's wood. She took a look around and said, Jack, which go-devil did you choose? He said, well, the only one that looked like it was worth anything. I chose the new one. The princess reached behind her and said, Jack, try this one. She brought out the old go-devil. Well, Jack just took one swing at a piece of wood, split it open. The go-devil flew out of his hand and proceeded to split all of the wood, all by itself. And in a half an hour, it had all of that wood split, stacked, except for one last piece of wood, which Jack walked over to, and he saw, sitting on that piece of wood, the king's gold pocket watch. Well, when the king came out to inspect the work, he was mighty impressed. He said, Jack, you're a pretty good hand at splitting wood. And he brought Jack back into the house and gave him a good meal and let him have a good rest. In the middle of the night, Jack felt a little tugging at his sleeve. He opened his eyes, and who was there but the princess? She said, Jack, I don't know what my daddy's got in store for you tomorrow, but if he offers you one old thing and one new thing, choose the old thing, Jack. Can you remember that? Yeah, I remember. And he went back to sleep. Well, the next morning he had a wonderful breakfast. And the king said, okay, Jack, are you ready for your task for today? Jack said, sure am, king. So they went out and looked at the ditches along the road leading down from the palace to the town. They were all grown up in tall grass and weeds. The king said, the grass is growing mighty tall here. All kinds of snakes and awful things could be hiding in there. Got to mow this down. That's your task for today, Jack. Can you take that on? Jack said, sure I can. King brought out 2 scythes. One had a brand new handle, shiny, sharp blade. The other blade was pitted, cracked, dull. One of the handle pieces was broken off. Jack looked them both over. Said, I can't work with that old one. I'm going to take the new one. So he took a couple of swipes with that new scythe, and sure as he got going, the grass would jump back up, join itself as tall as had been. And he was working his way, working all day as hard as he could, and the grass was as thick as when he began. About noon, the princess came out to bring him some lunch, took a look at what was going on, and said, Jack, what are you doing here? He said, I'm mowing down the grass along the ditches here. Which side did you choose, Jack? Well, I took the only one that would work worth the darn with a sharp blade, then I took the new one. The princess reached behind, pulled out the old one, and said, Jack, try this one. Well, Jack didn't take but 2 swipes with that old scythe, and it flew out of his hand and went off by itself all the way down one side of the road and back up the other, cutting the grass. Inside of a half hour, that whole road was taken care of. King came out to inspect the work. He said, well, Jack, you are a mighty good hand at mowing. So, of course, they had a wonderful dinner. Jack went up to bed that night. As he was sleeping, he felt a little tugging at his hair. He opened his eyes, and there was the princess. She said, Jack, I don't know what my daddy's got in store for you tomorrow, but if he offers you 2 things, one old and one new, take the old one, Jack. Well, Jack, so yeah, okay, the old one. He fell back to sleep. Next morning, after a good breakfast, King took Jack out for his final task. Took him out to the barn, which hadn't been cleaned in quite some time. The manure was about that high. He said, Jack, I need you to clean out my barn. I've got 2 pitchforks here. You know what they look like, don't you? One of them had broken off tines and worn down to nubs and splintery old handle. The other one was shiny new. Jack looked them both over and said, I can't do any work with that broken old thing. He took the new pitchfork. As soon as he heaved a couple of forkfuls of manure out the door, they came flying right back in and hit him in the back of the head. Every time he threw one out, 3 came back in. Pretty soon it was getting deeper and deeper. He was standing on top of it, hitting his head on top of the loft, and it was getting worse and worse.